subject, I have this theme that's coming up that I want to share, and I just don't know where to begin and how it's going to come out. But it has to do with loneliness. And when I say loneliness, I'm not really being accurate. What I'm talking about is aloneness. Do you hear the difference? Loneliness can be, I'm lonely. I want to be having relationships, not feel alone, not be lonely. But it's more the subject of being alone. I'm fascinated by the subject of being alone. You're born alone. You die alone. Even if you're with people, you're alone in your own thoughts. It's your thoughts you're thinking, you're alone in those thoughts. We have a strange relationship with needing others. On the one hand, who wants to be vulnerable? Nobody. So we'd rather be independent than need someone. So we kind of want to be alone. On the other hand, being alone is lame. Who wants to be alone? Right? So none of us want to be alone. And most people seek relationships in order to not be alone. Yet who wants to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't need you? You can imagine you found someone who was just perfectly fine on their own. But a wonderful person. You want to spend your life, anyone here would want to spend their life with someone who's just never going to need you? No one? Really? So here we got a whole room of people who don't want to need anyone, yet none of you would spend your life with it. None of you would ever choose to marry someone who wouldn't need you. Like, make up your mind. And we don't want to be needy. You hear why I'm fascinated with this whole alone business? I'm really into this right now. I'm like, this is my theme. I'm thinking through, and when I think through something, I don't stop thinking through it until I get somewhere. So I'm going to do it with you guys.
Soloveitchik talks about this, lonely faith and lonely faith.
Lonely man of faith. Yeah.
Existential idea of trying to have a relationship with God. And it's essential.
It's between you and him.
Between you and him, you can't. It's not a three-way.
Right. It's also an amazing thing is when you bring up relationship with God, it's you and God in the end. It's you and God. You may say prayers that were written by others in a prayer book, and they may be in the plural, but your relationship with God is your relationship with God. It's really between you and God. Anyway, but I'd like to go back to that conflict of like here, none of us want to be a needy person. None of us want to need anybody. We all want to feel independent on our own. Yet none of us would marry someone who wouldn't need us. Which means like we're all on a crash course to not getting married, because here we are trying to develop our independence and not need anybody. Yet at the same time, we're somehow supposed to be in the dating pool of getting married. I mean, that's like putting bug repellent all over you, and the people you're trying to marry are the bugs. Yeah.
Isn't it that they want you, that they need you?
Yeah, ideally, but yeah, well, there is. I believe there's this like iconic relationship where both of you are fine and settled and choosing to be in a relationship as two independent beings. I mean, I've got even Kabbalistic proofs for this. Shall I present one? For example...
It's really the need to give.
That's in its ideal form, it's a need to give, meaning I want to bestow upon another. Yeah, but most people's need in relationships is a need to be somehow saved, somehow that their aloneness is assuaged by this other person. Their loneliness is going to somehow go away in this relationship. Their feelings of being unworthy or unlovable or not good enough or dumb or ugly or stupid that are fat or whatever, that someone's going to somehow love me anyway and make me feel okay. Which reminds me of a student here in this classroom, actually. It was a packed day. And some guy in the back row, somehow, I don't know how, at the very beginning of the class, announced to the whole group that he's engaged to a Gentile. And I was on my way to make a point on the board of the first 5 minutes of class, and I was just like, what did you say? What did you say? And he says, oh, well, I'm engaged to a Gentile. I'm engaged to a Gentile. So I said, so do we have to kill her? And some of you are looking at me like, you're supposed to be laughing. That was a joke. Anyway, some of you are like, it was a joke. Anyway, the same thing happened in that class. Half the class was like, and the other half was like, so anyway, I said, so we have to kill her? And he says, you have to kill me first. And I said, so you love her? And he says, with all my heart. And then I took a poll of the class. I said, raise your hands if he should marry her. So several hands went up, and I was like, you're busted, to those guys for having raised their hands. And I said, so, Mr. Love, why don't you tell us what you love about her? I started switching gears quickly in the class. And he gives a long list, 9-item list. One after the other. He was like, she's warm. Oh man, lame pen. I see someone erase the board. That's a big plus. That's not much better. Let me just do the Ahmadinejad with a little centrifugal. Get the centrifuge going. Nuclear pens. So, warm, nice, okay, cooks. She makes him feel smart. She respects him. She also loves him. Anyway, I write down everything he's saying, I'm writing it on the board. And when I finished it all, so I said, amazing, it's love. And then I went to the board and I wrote warm to me, nice to me, cooks for me. Makes me feel smart, respects me, loves me. So, but all 9 things, the whole entire list was about him. He didn't even mention her in 9 things. And some are arguable. These weren't 2 of them. I just added these this time. These are arguable because she really may be nice and warm. He didn't give those. These were like directly about him, every one of them. And so at that point, I turned around to the class and I said, who does he love? What's the answer, Benjamin? Himself. Loves himself. And then I said, oh, really? Does he really love himself? I would say quite the opposite. I would say this man is full of self-loathing. And he has a 50-stitch wound that's going to require major cleaning and anesthesia and stitches. But he's got some girl that's some butterfly Band-Aid that's going to hold it together for about a year. And it's going to pop open anyway, all over her. Yeah, and that's love. Anyway, I decided to totally sacrifice this guy. I mean, he's already engaged to a Gentile. I'll just try to save the other 30 people in the class. So I just like completely, sacrificed. I just put him on a bonfire. I spent the next 50 minutes talking about our wounds and how we're somehow supposed to get healed by our relationships. And somehow we call our parents when we're wounded. We call this one when, if there's good news, if you're a guy, you call your dad. If you're bad news, you call your mom. If you get girls do this a lot. They have like different relationships with different people based on what's going on. So like if she gets fired, she goes out with this guy. If she gets a job, she goes out with that guy. Yeah, if she, like everything has its, they're basically married to all these people without actually being married to any one of them. And that's the tough part of being a husband is you have to handle all of her news. Meaning no matter what's going on, you're in charge. Whereas what single girls do, and I don't blame them because no one gets married anymore, so they need relationship and they have different spectrums of needs, and they just tap different men to be to field each kind of hit, of what she's swinging on, but the problem with that is the woman has no energy left to give to a man. There's like a ball of energy that a man catches for marriage. Like a woman has a ball of energy and you're the catcher. And it just, you catch it. She pitches it, you catch it, mazel tov. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. But there's no ball of energy because this one's got a little ball and that one's got a little ball and this one's got a little ball and that one's got a little ball and this one's got there's no one to catch. There's nothing to catch, right? They call a woman, a girl or a guy, a good catch. Yeah. Nothing to catch because she's got herself totally tapped out, which you can't blame her. She's a human being. Human beings got to share, and women got to share times 100 what a man's got to share, and they need people to share it with, and so just the way it goes. One thing I can offer, though, if anyone's listening, is get rid of all your platonic relationships. It's a tough pill to swallow. It's a big horse pill, but literally call or email every guy friend you have and just say, it's over. I'm not doing it anymore. Maybe after we get married, maybe after I get married, you can come over for Shabbos, but it's over. I'm not doing that anymore. And what happens within 6 to 8 months is she gets engaged and married. It's amazing. It's happened over and over and over again. This is one of my pieces of advice that I offer a guarantee with it. That if a girl who's in what I call dating hell, would just stop having all those friends who are guys and just like go cold turkey, what happens is her ball of energy starts building and building and building and building until she's a great catch. And then the right catcher will come along within 6 to 8 months. The biggest amazing miracle story that happened with this is there was a girl who had so many Shabbos guests over all the time. She was famous for her Shabbos guests. She didn't know my wife and I. I mean, she obviously had heard of us, but we didn't have a relationship with her. And but we kept watching and kind of, Josh, can you slide one way or another, please? We kept, just slide your chair a bit, one way or the other, maybe. Okay, so better. Then you want to slide over a little. So we kept watching and, feeling bad for the poor thing. And finally, my wife and I decided, that's it, we're going in. We knock on her door. Hi, we're the Glazers. She's like, I know who you are. And we're like, we just want to talk to you. She's like, well, come in. And anyway, we laid it on the line for her, and we're just like, we're tired of seeing you crying at the hotel. It's enough. Your tears have soaked the lower stones. It's getting moldy down there. Let's get you married already. And she says, okay, great. And we're like, you got to drop it. You just got to drop all this thing. You're married to about 50 men at this point, and we need to just get rid of it all. And anyway, she hated us. We left the house she's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. And she just didn't like us for about 9 months. 9 months later, she has another breakdown at the hotel. And in that breakdown, she finally says, that's it. She goes back to her apartment and she calls it was like 30 men. She called and just said, it's over. Canceled her giant Shabbos meals, everything, done. When she calls the last man, she's crying. She's letting go of all these relationships. And the last man she calls, hangs up the phone, there's a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. She goes to the door. It's not my wife and I now. It's just some hapless yeshiva boy wanted to know what time the Shabbos meal was. And she says, it's canceled. No more Shabbos meals. And he says, what? I heard this is the place. And she's like, it's not the place. It's over. He says, and he was like, so who are you? And she explains who she is. And he tells her who he is. Anyway, long story short, I made a bracha under the chuppah. Yeah, after that last call, walked in the guy, and she invited me. It was very nice of her. She invited me. I didn't have a relationship with her. She invited me to the chuppah, and I made a bracha under a chuppah. That was a little quicker than the 6 to 8 month guarantee. She got the 6 to 8 second guarantee. Okay, now Anyway, but the point back to being alone is that very few people marry this way, and very few people want to be married to someone who doesn't need them on a dependent level. I was going to show you Kabbalistically, I'd like to show you Kabbalistically how I believe it's supposed to be, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'd like you guys to fight me on this one, because I'm happy to be wrong. One of the few people who are happy to be wrong. Most people are happy to be right, although they're not really happy. Because the second you put on your right hat, what do you chase out of the relationship? Begins with an L. O, V, E. The second you put on your right hat, you just watch love go right out the window. So you'll notice that in life. Once you get your right hat on and you start being right in a conversation with someone, you literally just watch the love disappear. Who do you think is going to win the average argument between me, who had an entire secular background all the way through university and everything, plus 23 years learning Torah, and now I've got some college kid who wants to argue with me about something? Who's going to win that argument? Okay? Well, you never know, but usually me. Okay? Do you think I'm going to win an argument with some boy who's about to go down the river of assimilation? You think I'm going to win an argument with him? If I win, what's that make him? Winner or loser? Makes him a loser. I know it's a winner, but he's going to walk out like a loser. Is he ever going to come back? Someone makes you feel like a loser because he just threw your entire world view on its head. He's gone. He's gone. So I've learned lessons over the years that I'm here for a long-term relationship with people and with life, and I can win an argument and lose a battle, and win a battle and lose a war, and also my marriage. Notice my wife and I are having a discrepancy. It's taken me many years to realize that that's a great way to chase the love out of the room. But I'm married. I want love in the room. We're sitting in the dining room. I want love. I don't want to chase the love out. So I just give it to her. Just let her be right. And it's amazing. She just relaxes, just like that. She relaxes, I relax. You feel the love. Yeah. Now, sometimes you're in an argument that you just have to figure something out, and it's time sensitive. You gotta make a decision. She wants this way, he wants that way. And this is where the beautiful, amazing Jewish tradition kicks in, where you can, you're arguing and it's time sensitive, you got an hour to decide or a week or whatever, and you feel like literally the love's gone, and like you just feel God's presence fly out of your house. Like you feel the presence of God disappear. Not a nice feeling. So Judaism has an age-old tradition how to bring love right back in. You know what that is? Yeah, say it louder. That's right. You call the rabbi, the family rabbi. Every Jewish family has a rabbi. You call that rabbi and you say, my wife says potatoes, I said potatoes, and we've called the whole thing off, and we just want to know what the rabbi has to say. And you just feel God's presence come right back into the house. Amazing. It's palpable. I mean, you should be able to have a God's presence reader, because it just goes up to 100. Just like that. Just you ask the rabbi, and it's right back there. Just one piece of advice, since you guys might be listening. I can never tell if people are listening. Just kidding. Just one more piece of advice for all who are listening is that the husband goes to the rabbi, not the wife. Okay? He can express the wife's side of the argument. She can write a letter to the rabbi. She can go herself, but don't go together. Don't go together. And ideally, really, the husband. Why? Because we're supposed to at least pretend the husband's leading the family. Okay? We're supposed to at least pretend that's happening. I mean, in Hebrew, the word for husband is Baal. What does the word Baal mean? It means master. He's the master of the home and the direction of the family. Now, of course, that may be just a term to make him feel better about what's going on over there. Because in general, women are often, especially in the last 65 years, have been, there was first the Holocaust, and then there was the male Holocaust since feminism and the male Holocaust. So they've both been about 65 years. So one ended and the other began. Yeah. So anyway, but the male Holocaust has taken out a lot of the woman's respect for her husband. And you might say, okay, so he let him respect her. But there's only one problem: is respect of one's husband and something else go hand in hand. No respect, no what? Who knows what it is? Begins with an A. T. It's not a phone company. Attraction. No respect, no attraction. So that's a very tough pill to swallow, because we're set up, men are today set up to apologize for being males, and women are set up to flex muscles. So, but the problem is don't expect to be cohabitating in another 10 years, because there's not going to be any attraction. You'll be lucky in 5 years if there's any left. And that's why that's why there was a great, what's it called? A great poll, what do you call it? Investigation? What's the word? Inquiry, scientific. Whatever. Where social scientists went in to find out about the frequency of cohabitation of Americans after 10 years of marriage. And they were a little shocked to find out that parents are with one another after 10 years of marriage once every 6 weeks. Once every 6 weeks. Yikes. Once every 6 weeks. Can you imagine that's what you guys are looking forward to? That's pretty nasty, right? Once every 6 weeks. That's like, in Judaism, that's like not being married, Anyway, but that's what they discovered. That's after 10 years. Imagine what 15, 20 years looks like. So anyway, so we have to realize that this whole thing, this whole male Holocaust has become a crash course for unhappy marriage. And for that reason, the husband should go to the Rebbe. And he should come back, even though it's the Rebbe who's really guiding the family in this one, because he called the shot, which may have been like the wife, may have been like the husband. We don't know what he called. Might have been the woman he called with. But the man comes back from the rabbi and says, this is what we're doing. And she says, okay, take me on this journey. Let's go. And so us women who have these complaints, us women, I'm so used to running women's seminars. Oh my God, I've never done that in here. Okay, I run my seminar, I also have women's seminars, like I mentioned the 25th, so I'm so used to being in their shoes when we're experienced, so I say, us ladies gotta stick together, It's never happened outside of there, I can't believe I just said that. But that's like, if you're wondering how I could be sensitive enough to lead a women's transformational seminar, the answer is I am that sensitive. So,
You're in touch with your females.
very. So, anyway, so what I was going to share with you is that the answer is not to ever be disappointed with one's husband. The answer is not disappointment. The answer is it's your fault if you're the woman. This is all your fault. You killed him 18 years ago or 20 years ago. Before you even had a chance. It's all your fault. It's the woman's fault. And therefore, she has to do tshuva. And the main tshuva is her own personal tshuva that she has to do. But she also has to do the following. Your job from now on is to what? I gave it away. What did I say, Shoshana? Build them up. Build them up. It's never too late to build up a man. And amazing thing happens all of a sudden as you build up your man, the respect comes back, and guess what comes right after respect? The attraction's back, and everything runs smoothly. It's really, she has to take responsibility for this and rebuild him. And it's totally buildable. The thing is you got to just stop being the one who pays the bills and takes care of that and takes care of this and takes care of that. Because women are weird when it comes to taking up slack. Women will take up all slack. And men will just create more. So men create more slack and women just take up that slack. And men create more slack and they take up that slack. Kids create a lot of slack when they know their mom's cleaning up after them, so the woman will take up that slack. It's amazing. When my wife goes out of town, our house is never cleaner and never runs more smoothly because she's not taking up slack, so we all have to. And so now all of a sudden you got, we were 8 kids. Now we got, a couple are out of the house already, but we had 8 kids. Me, and that's 9. That's 9 human beings taking care of a house. The house worked a lot better with 9 people running it than my poor wife. But the second she moves back, she comes back to the house, it's so clean, it's so beautiful. And we're like, yeah, enjoy it for the next hour or two, because we're going to go right back to being slackers, and you're going to go right back to taking up our slack. So women are natural slack taker-uppers, and they have to stop doing that. They have to start to build him up and start letting out, letting the slack bat out in the rope. You have to seriously, the woman has to seriously inform him, though, where offices are to pay those bills. And I mean, the man needs a very clear list of what exactly you've been doing all these years, so that he can start, taking care of business. Because otherwise, he's not going to have the slightest clue how to get that done. So let's go for that Kabbalistic proof here. What is the word for love in Hebrew? Ahava, right? Ahava. And Ahava has, I think I have to go with green because this board has turned pink. So Ahava, can you guys see that back there at all? Not so good? Can you see it? So if you look at Ahava, it has the numerical value of, 1 plus 5 plus 2 plus 5. It has a numerical value of what? 13. Well, that's interesting because 13 has the numerical value of, it's the same numerical value of the word echad, which means 1. Okay, 1 plus 8 plus 4 also equals 13. Okay, and I guess Bob Marley was a great Kabbalist when he came up with the song, One Love, One Heart. Yeah, one love. So 1 and love have the same numerical value. What I'd like to argue is that when you yourself have love inside yourself, you are a self-contained, loving being without the need for anyone else loving you, that you yourself love yourself, which is called in the emotional intelligence movement, it's called being self-generated. When you yourself are self-generated and you're feeling love of yourself, not all that garbage that we dealt with the guy who was engaged to the Gentile. Remember the garbage man? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I didn't even tell you the end of the story. Amazing. So as I was leaving the classroom, I was like tiptoeing out the door, hoping he wouldn't kill me or something. It's like just trying to get out quick. And just as I'm leaving the door, he's like, Rabbi, and I'm like, oh man. And I'm like, yeah. And he says, can we meet, please? And I'm like, yes. I was so excited that he wanted to meet with me because now I can fix things up. I do have to patch up classes sometimes. Rabbis do offend people. If you're really doing your job as a rabbi, you got to be getting some people upset. Okay, it's the way it goes. You know the job. Have you guys ever read the job description of a rabbi? It's to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. And so that's our job. If you're not doing that, you're ripping off your community. If you're always being nice to everybody and telling everyone exactly what they want to hear, you ain't no rabbi. You're a politician. So anyway, but you should know that almost every time I've angered somebody, it was always because they had to really have a deep cry. And they had the deep cry and usually had a great breakthrough. There's some amazing stories where to the point where I get called in by the Aish HaTorah management saying, you really upset that girl. And I'm just like, no one else was upset, the whole rest of the class seemed fine. And you're like, well, she was, and she left storming out and called the management and everything. And they're like, we expect you to apologize. I was just Torah class, what do I apologize? Get Moses to apologize. I'm not apologizing for that. and teach you Torah. And they're like, Rabbi, you don't have to retract what you said. You just got to apologize for upsetting her. And so I tracked down some girl and apologized with all my heart, and obviously telling her that was hardly my intention, was to upset her so badly. And anyway, of course, she had the full spontaneous combustion, meltdown, implosion, and talked about all her what happened to her in her life and what I brought up for her and the whole thing. And the girl wound up in she wound up becoming like like the chief rabbi of a fool's wife or something, or his third wife. I don't know. Okay, just kidding. You like that one? No, but the many times I'll tell you like one of those stories. It was summertime, and 5 girls came to this class in their bathing suits. Okay, some were in one piece, some were in two piece. I guess the one piece one felt, it is a yeshiva. Anyway, so people were just shocked. I was like, where are the curtains for like the temple? Like the Temple Mount, right? I was looking for curtains in the classroom. Okay, we'll put the board here. We're going to take care of this. So anyway, but they sit down and they're so uncomfortable that you can cut the air with a knife. Because what happened was it was their first time ever coming to a Torah class, and the group had a beach trip right after, so they figured let's just wear our bathing suits to the first part, and then we'll have them on already for the second part. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into. So anyway, so I made a joke just to lighten up the air. Anyway, the other 4 thought it was the funniest thing they ever heard. The other one ran out crying. And anyway, she was the only one in this group of 50 kids. It was like a birthright style thing. She was the only one of these 50 kids who was raised observant. And how dare I mention anything about what she chose to wear? Yeah. Whoa. Anyway, I got another call from the head of Aish HaTorah. I upset this girl, and anyway, I gave an apology, not only to her, to their entire group during their lunch. And she spoke to me privately and had that full meltdown. And found her way right back into women's seminary and started studying Torah again, and thank God. So anyway, this guy, I met with him, we met one-on-one. A year later, he comes to the Aish HaTorah convention in Connecticut. I didn't recognize him. Kippah tzitzis. Comes running over to Rabbi Glaser. And I'm like, who are you? And he says, I'm the guy who was engaged to the Gentile, who was in love with myself, but really I hated myself, and I was somehow trying to heal it with this engagement. And I said, you? And he says, me. And not only that, I'm coming to yeshiva next month. And I'm learning full time. He's an engineer, a businessman engineer, and he came to yeshiva for a whole semester. Amazing. Okay. Anyway, so the word one is the same numerical value as love. Love and one are the same numerical value, which means that you are your own unit. That love and you have to go together, like you alone, as echad, one person. Somehow in life, you must discover how to love yourself. Well, I found a shortcut for that, and that's my seminars, which have become very popular in the Jewish world, which is 24 hours. It takes basically it's 12 hours of drilling, and then and then 12 hours of creating a proper something, creating a crown for your tooth. Yeah, it's first it's basically a root canal on your personality, and it hurts like a root canal. It's sponsored by Kleenex tissue, actually. The amount of tears that are shed in there, and the women always ask, "Do the men cry this much?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." Men cry just as much. Okay, the women cry sooner. They cry earlier. We have this circle where you go around in a circle and everyone talks about what they want to get out of the seminar. Yeah, so the way you do it in the men's group, the men go around, they tell what they want to get out of it. What's their goal? The women, you just pass a tissue box around. Whoever's holding the tissue box is the one sharing at the time what she wants to get out of it. But it's basically a personal root canal to get yourself to be one love. One love, that you are one unit with total love of yourself. Now, what happens when you add the word 13 to 13? When you add 13 to 13, you get the word one again. Shall I show you over here? Should I show you over here? So you get the word one again. Let's see. You got an aleph. What's an aleph? What's the numerical value of aleph? It's 1. But it's really a vav, which is a 6, and a yud is 10, and another yud is 10, which equals 26. So when you add 13 plus 13, you get 26. When you take two adults, where he is whole and she is whole, and they marry, you get 26. Well, 26 is not a random number. It's a very important number in Judaism because it's the same numerical value as a yud and a hey and a vav and a hey, right? 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5 equals 26. It's God's name. Who is one? God is one, aleph, which equals 26, and the yud and the hey and the vav and the hey equals 26. When you add your whole self to another whole self, i.e. you love yourself and that person loves themselves, then you come to God dwelling between you. It's a marriage that, maybe you could say it's a marriage lishma, that you're married because you're here to create something greater between the two of you, as opposed to a Band-Aid. You're not Band-Aiding each other. Now I'm going to ask you again, and I want everyone to vote. You ready? Would you marry someone who doesn't need you? Yes, okay, we gotta say, you're supposed to raise your hand. Would you marry someone who doesn't need you based on what we've discussed so far? Raise your hand. Would you? Many more people raise their hand. You know, I do a test. I actually do a test when I'm visiting America, I'll see old students of mine from the years of Aish HaTorah. And I figured out a way to test whether the parents are feeling whole in themselves. And the way I do that is I'll see them in a kiddish and they're holding a baby. And the baby's looking over the shoulder. The parents haven't seen me yet. So what I do is I go over to the baby and I go like this. To the baby, like it should, come on. Big smile, come on. And once in a while the baby just jumps, starts reaching to go to the rabbi. And other times I was putting baby and rabbi together. It almost came out rabies. So all of a sudden the baby goes into this Vulcan grip around its parent's neck. Like someone's trying to take me. Yeah? And so then I know that family needs a little bit of Rabbi Yom Tov in their lives. Yeah? And maybe I'll invite myself over, make a bracha in their house. You moved into a home with your wife, so maybe I'll come by and make a bracha on something, but then get a chance to really talk to them. Because you notice in the kids, when parents are individual units of love, and they're whole, and they're just serving God in their marriage and their families, the kids are very free-spirited, and they're very open to be held by anyone, and just feel at peace with themselves. Whereas when the parents themselves aren't whole, so they're trying to somehow patch each other up with each other. Well, what's a bigger patch than a spouse? What's the biggest Band-Aid for a lonely person? A child. There's no better Band-Aid than children. Children are like the ultimate Band-Aid for a parent. I mean, these kids, you ask any kid till they're about 6, 7 years old, who they love more, themselves or their parent, they'll say their parent. They can't help it. There's such a direct attachment to you. They're so attached. They're so linked to you. And what a feeling to have someone love you like that. An amazing feeling. Unless, of course, you don't need that because you're whole. And therefore, you're only there to give. You're only there to give. I remember growing up in my father's car when we would drive. My father used to say on three, everyone say, I love my daddy. 1, 2, 3. And the whole car would say, I love my daddy. Me and my brothers, we're 4 boys. But we were obviously filling something up for him. Yeah, we were healing something in him by saying that. There's nothing wrong with experiencing your children's love. Nothing wrong with experiencing any. You get in love and experience it. It's great. but don't siphon their love out of them. You know, they need your love put into them for them to be whole. When you are whole, so you can parent in a much more beautiful way. If I can quote Sting, if you love someone, set them free. Yeah? Not literally, I mean, don't send them out free, but meaning it shouldn't have these heavy chains of need. For most women on the planet, having a baby is the most meaningful thing that'll have ever happened to them. But there's nothing unique about that. Every single plant reproduces. Every animal reproduces. You go watch the chimps in the zoo. They also have kids. Yeah. That shouldn't. The fact that you reproduce shouldn't be the most meaningful thing in your life. Reproduction's part of the system. I mean, everyone should be blessed to be able to reproduce. Obviously, people can have issues, but it is built into nature. Reproduction. There has to be something much deeper, more meaningful in our lives. And when you find that thing that is much greater, much more meaningful in your life, and then you have kids, those are going to be some amazing kids. Because you're there for filling the universe with beauty and solutions to the world's problems and just goodness. And there's no extra strings attached to this love. They're still going to love you just as much, and you get to enjoy being so loved by your kids. Oh my gosh, these precious hugs I get every day. We're a very huggy family because I'm the father, so our kids are a little more emotionally intelligent probably than 99.9% of Hasidic families, but there's a lot of hugging going on when I get home, and it is precious. It's exquisite to have each kid come in for that hug, and they come all the way up to teenagers. Normally teenagers don't want to hug anymore. Not my teenagers. My teenagers are it's so built in that a hug is a good thing no matter what, no matter how much independence you need. The truth is I do offer a lot of independence. Maybe that's why I'm getting all the hugs. You know, I offer my kids a lot of independence. And I let them make their own mistakes and make their own choices and all that stuff. All right. Someone want to fight me on this though, because again, I'm willing to hear an attack against this because maybe it's not healthy. It's not what everyone else is doing, that's for sure. And what I've created here and somehow backed up with some numerical values isn't necessarily doesn't mean it's right. It's certainly different than what most people are up to. Does someone want to fight this? I really don't want to be right on this one.
People will say that you can do this without, in a secular way. Secular Jews will say you can have a person who has no needs marry another person. There are a lot of good people who are balanced and well-adjusted who are secular.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't bring in that at all.
Sachs talks about it. Jonathan Sachs.
Yeah.
He says there's some more sense for purpose in life when you introduce God into the world as well. But there are many people who are complete within themselves and therefore be successful in marriage.
Right. But does anyone argue that maybe this whole thing is a mistake? Meaning, I don't think anyone here argues that being complete in life isn't the goal. I think we all want to be complete in life. That's for sure the goal. But so many of us thought that the completion that we're creating is with another, with our children. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the completion's not going to be with one's spouse. And it's not going to be with your children. Completion will have to be internal. And then you marry someone, and then you have children. No one wants to argue this? Does it sound agreeable? Go ahead, yeah.
Do you think there are limits to how wholesome you should be prior to meeting your spouse? Meaning, if you're so independent and if you become so independent, it's hard to find a spouse that you can respect.
I think, yeah, what's your name?
Tali.
Tali, I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. When you're that independent, it's really hard to do that. But I'd like to distinguish what I was talking about. I'm not discussing being independent. I'm discussing being whole. For example, you can have a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old, or even my daughter got engaged at 17. She was far from independent. Okay, she was completely dependent in so many ways on our household, on our worldview, on, she's hardly considered we've basically, my wife and I have basically knocked out adult singlehood. Okay, we have gotten rid of the concept of adult singlehood. I guess we just weren't that impressed by our own, because my wife and I both had adult singlehood, and we seem to have just kind of made a choice for our kids on that one. That adult singlehood was certainly fun. We certainly had a great time. I definitely put down a lot of beer over those years, and great surf sessions, and amazing travel, and great rock concerts, and various other things that kill brain cells. And those were all great times. But I didn't even know I did this. Someone came up to me. Was that you? And someone came up to me the other day and just said, "You realize you've eradicated adult singlehood for your children?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, no, I didn't realize that." I'm telling you, this week is when I found out that I got rid of adult singlehood for my kids, which means I didn't like it. But I don't recall any bad days. I only recall having a lot of fun. But somehow I just have, without even knowing, that's how, I unconsciously got rid of it that my children shouldn't have to deal with it. Anyway, so they're hardly independent. They're extremely dependent young people being handed over to someone who's extremely dependent young people, but very whole. I was discussing wholeness from within, an inner wholeness, not at all an independence. They don't even know what they like yet. They don't know anything. They've barely developed their own personal taste. You can tell in the outfits they wear. Look at what a 17-year-old girl wears. It's like whatever's on the top of the shelf. They don't know their colors yet. They don't know their styles yet. They just don't know anything, really. Unless their mother is like a designer or paid for them to go find out what their colors are, because everyone has colors. Of course, black works for everybody, and unfortunately, everyone goes for that. But you actually have colors. Men probably have colors too, but most of them would never know what their colors are. Women at least figure it out. That's why you'll notice that the girl who has always seemed clumsy and klutzy in high school, you come back, after college, you run into her and she just looks so put together because she found her colors. She found what jives with her whole style. And there are people who are, do this professionally for a girl who doesn't figure it out on her own. Anyway, they're totally out of it. These kids, they don't have a clue what they want, what they like, but internally so complete and so whole. Yeah, someone asked me, actually, right after they were engaged, because they only met for 45 minutes. So someone asked before they were engaged. So someone asked me, like, how do you expect a girl, your daughter, who doesn't even know what sweater to put on, like she can't figure out what outfit to wear, is somehow supposed to figure out who she's supposed to spend the rest of her life with? And the answer is, her internal world is so whole, and the vibrational pattern of an internally whole person is a very solid and clean vibration. Well, love is the ultimate clean and simple and sweet vibration. Love, there's no greater vibrational pattern between human beings, between God, for ourselves, than love. And since we're talking about the intimacy and connection of a couple for the rest of their lives, and since they themselves are so unadulterated, their hearts have never been, meaning their love pattern has never been sliced before. You understand? When your love pattern, when your heart's been broken, so your vibrational pattern of love has weird interference patterns. Like when you throw a pebble in water in a pond, it makes a perfect circle. It's beautiful. But you throw that pebble, and then you throw another one, and it creates interference patterns. So it's hard to figure out even which was the original pattern, and throw a couple more pebbles, a couple more heartbreaks, a couple more relationships, a couple more this, a couple more that, a couple more that, a couple more that. After a while, you just got this crazy pattern going on. It's hard to figure out exactly what you want. Whereas when you're raised in that kind of sheltered environment, so you just have this one perfectly circular pattern coming out, and this boy had this one perfectly circular pattern coming out. It was the weirdest thing. When I met him, I knew it was my daughter's soulmate. I mean, I gave him an 1.5-hour exam. I wouldn't let him near my daughter until I grilled him for an 1.5 hours. Poor guy went through hell. And but before I even asked him the first question, I already knew he was it. It was weird. Like it was just this sense that, oh my gosh, this is who my daughter's going to marry. And she knew it too, and my wife knew it. And it was just the weirdest thing. And they were engaged just after. Yeah. So, anyway, so again, Tali, we're not talking about independence. Independence, getting two totally independent people as like, young adults to somehow mesh is very, very difficult. And what helps a lot is God and Torah. Because at least you got one thing in absolute common. Like that for sure. You got God and Torah going. So, okay, maybe she likes sports and you like, social events. So there will be some, because obviously when two people are so independent, you're going to have a lot of misses. And so that's okay. You can have misses. Not a big deal. The main thing is to have God as number one, have a Rebbe to bring in the peace in the home, all that stuff. So anyway, I just rambled on a bunch. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm still trying to figure all this out. I really am. I don't know about this whole alone thing. I'm still not, even though I'm the one sharing it, I'm still not 100% sold on the concept. It seems a little lonely. I don't mean lonely like, oh, poor me, I'm all alone. I don't mean like that. I'm talking more like existentially lonely, like you're kind of like existing alone. For some reason there's something about that I'm uncomfortable with. I'm not whole with this concept yet. You're obviously never alone. There's God, but until you develop that experience of like you're not alone, but God's with you, you can have a lot of years of feeling whole. I'm totally whole, but I'm alone. So there seems to be a but there. I'm whole, but I'm alone. So am I alone or am I not alone? So the answer is you're not alone, you're with God. But till you start thinking about that, you could spend some serious time in your life of feeling alone. Because for most people, God is an app. Okay, God's an app you click on and then stop feeling so alone. But until you clicked on the app, you can feel pretty alone. I imagine, I hope for my kids, I think my kids have told me, I've interviewed a few of my kids if they feel alone. And they said they don't. My son was an illegal alien in Europe for a year and a half, which means he has to cross borders a lot. And it's pretty hairy as a 16 and 17-year-old having to be an illegal alien in Europe, because Europe's very buttoned up on its immigration, and it's not easy to smuggle around there. And so here he is constantly, like, everywhere he goes, he can be nabbed. And I asked him, like, did you ever feel alone? Did you ever feel scared? And he said to me, no, Hashem's with me every second. He's with me every second. I'm speaking to the border patrol, I'm speaking to the authorities. I'm lying through my teeth about what I'm doing there. And I'm showing him this passport, not showing him other passports. I'm like, I'm just, and I just look the guy right in the eyes because I know Hashem's with me. And I want to learn Torah in this particular yeshiva in the woods of Belgium. That's what I want, and that's where I'm going to learn best. And God is with me, and that's it. And he just feels God with him. I said, well, how about when you get thrown in jail? He's been thrown in jail twice now. So how about when you got thrown in jail? He says, he was with me in jail. He was with me in jail. He's with me everywhere. So maybe maybe all this issue of being alone's only an issue for people who weren't raised with God consciousness. If you were raised in God consciousness, maybe, anyone here was raised with God consciousness? Raise your hand if your parents were like constantly giving you the God consciousness business. You too?
No, I was raised with the God consciousness all my life.
Oh, great. Did you ever feel alone?
Never.
Shoshana, you raised God consciousness?
Yeah.
You ever feel alone?
Yeah.
Yeah, she did. Anyone else raised God consciousness? No one else? You were raised? Did you ever feel alone? Not so alone? Anyone back there raise God's consciousness? You were? Yeah. You ever feel alone? You do feel it. But that might be lonely. Again, I'm not talking about lonely. Oh, Shoshana, I wasn't talking lonely. I'm talking alone. The existential angst of alone. You ever felt that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you? Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Again, I told you guys, I don't know what I'm doing today. And just anyone who has any info about this or any feelings about it or want to bring something up or ask more or discuss it further with me, you can do that either in person or I would suggest emailing me at yglaser with an S at aish.com. Yglaser at aish. Totally happy to chat about it. I really want to, when I'm developing a thought, I really want to get as much. So I got like another 25 people to think it through with me. So if you guys wouldn't mind, help me with this one. Please send your thoughts. If you've got some writings on it, books on it, websites.